Okay, I'm excited today. We got a great show ahead for you guys. We make a lot of little ones, we make a lot of big ones, we make a lot of serious ones, we make a lot of light ones. So I'm going to start the show off nice and light about illegal aliens and how much one Republican loves them. You'll see what I'm talking about in a sec. But then we are going to get serious. There's an African American shooting that happened in Utah that is heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. That's at the end of this hour. If I do that one early, I'm going to get so angry, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do the other stories. Okay, we got great news about ISIS today. That's not a sentence you hear often. We got terrible news about Somalia. That's a sentence you do hear quite often. We've got Republican tax scams. What other kind of tax plans do Republicans have? But in the second hour, two stories that I think are amazing. One is hashtag #MeToo. Different famous women coming out with stories of the abuse that they have suffered, sexual harassment, assault, etc. I think that is a monumentally important movement. I can't wait to talk about that. I think that is a gigantic game changer. It's a cultural tipping point. So it doesn't get any bigger than that. That's in the second hour. And just for a little bit of fun, we've got a gay Jewish Nazi. Okay, how did that turn out? Well, you'll find out second hour of the show. By the way, if you pop in and out of the show, God bless your heart. You get 2 segments of the show that's free audio podcast. God bless your heart. But if you want to get all 6 segments, you want to get the whole 2-hour show commercial free, become a member. tytnetwork.com/join. And I want to give you guys one other piece of news here about tonight. Tonight, everybody can watch this live. This one you don't have to be a member for. We're going to do a collaboration with Brave New Films. They're wonderful. And it's a story about immigrant prisons and how people profit off of imprisoning immigrants in America. So watch it with us. We're going to live stream it at tytnetwork.com/live. And it's going to be at 7:30 Pacific tonight. Of course, 10:30 Eastern. That's tonight, October 17th. Watch it at tytnetwork.com/live. There's going to be a panel that I'm going to host. I'm going to talk about the issue. We're going to show the movie. It's a short movie, but it is absolutely powerful. I didn't know some of the facts in there, and it is also devastating, including how long they've kept some people in prison without charges. It is ridiculous. And unfortunately, it touches on the issue of slave labor again, and we reconstitute that here in America. It is outrageous. So don't miss that tonight at 10:30 Eastern, right here at tytnetwork.com/live. All right, let's do the show. All right, starting fun, as I promised you. Okay. Well, I've been worried lately that the Republican Party is going nuts, that they've lost their mind. Well, we might have further confirmation of that. One of their candidates might have to actually conduct her campaign from an insane asylum. It's Bettina Rodriguez Aguilera. She is running in Florida for the retiring Republican seat of Representative Elena Ross-Lathanen. She's been in Congress for quite some time. She's leaving. And there's, to be fair, there's a lot of people that are looking to replace her, including several other Republicans. But boy, have we got an interesting story about Bettina. She did an interview, a series of interviews actually, and in the interviews, Rodriguez Aguilera claimed she was taken at the age of 7 by 3 tall, blonde space people who have communicated with her telepathically at times since. Well, that's very interesting. I wonder what they're saying. And I am interested to find out that aliens are blonde. I thought that was just Jesus, actually, which now brings us to this. She said the aliens reminded her of the Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro. Of course they did. So there's that statue if you've never seen it. Okay, that is a sound effect I just did. Okay, so apparently the aliens look like Jesus. Of course they do! Who else would they look like? Could you imagine? She grew up Christian. What a wonderful coincidence that the aliens who kidnapped her look like Jesus. If she had grown up Muslim, they probably would have looked like Muhammad, although no one knows what he looked like. Or maybe Ganesh if she was Hindu. But as it turns out, what a lucky break. She was born Christian, and the aliens look like Jesus. A wonderful break. Okay. She explains further. I went in. There were some round seats that were there, and some quartz rocks that controlled the ship. Not like airplanes, of course. I mean, what else would you run an alien ship with other than quartz rocks? Hello, McFly. Okay, and yeah, there's this one part that I actually don't disagree with, though. disagree with that. I don't know what the aliens are like. Okay, but she said, God is a universal energy, not a person. It's in everything. Well, okay, I mean, that's the basis for a lot of the world's religions, or sects of different religions. Taoism, Sufism, Transcendentalism here in America, my favorite. And so that's not an outrageous comment. But the part I don't understand is God's not a person, but he's blonde and looks like Jesus. Okay, interesting. Final quote for you guys. She says, God talks to people, and they understand it in different ways, but there's only one religion. Okay? So they came millions, maybe billions of miles away in their quartz rock ships, and they said, you're never going to believe this. In the other galaxies, that one guy you guys have on this tiny little planet in this galaxy that was born in this tiny area in near Bethlehem, and never talked about anything outside of that tiny little area, never mentioned the Indonesians, the Filipinos, the Amazons, never mentioned any of that stuff, never mentioned the other galaxies, never talked about us, the blonde quartz rock aliens. But bammo, it turns out he is the Son of God. Well, look, to be fair, if the aliens landed and said, you know what, our bad, the prophet doesn't come from us, God doesn't care about any of the rest of the galaxies and the universe, and that's why he never talked about it. He only cares about you guys, or you are special people, especially the children of Israel. That they are the chosen people, as the Old Testament explains. Okay, then I'll say, hey, my bad, man. My bad to blonde Jesus. I didn't see that coming. Or perhaps she's insane. One or the other, not quite sure. But in the old days, she would have been run out of town. Nowadays, the president's crazy. So people are like, I don't know, maybe she'll win. Well, this much at least we know. We found one Republican who loves illegal aliens. Unless they brought documents. I'd be surprised. But you never know. Okay. Blonde Jesus aliens. God, the Republicans do amazing propaganda. Amazing. People actually start to believe it so much they think they got kidnapped to buy them. Anyway, all right, next. Greg Popovich was already one of my favorite people on the planet. I respect the San Antonio Spurs so much. They are boring, they are methodical, and they are champions. They play great basketball, they have great teamwork. Growing up, I was a Lakers fan. I loved Showtime, Razzle Dazzle, the whole thing. The Spurs. Oh, come on, pass. Where's the giant dunks? What are you guys doing? I've now become a Spurs fan because all they do is win. They're amazing, and they're led by Greg Popovich, who is their coach. He's also the coach of the U.S. national basketball team. That's going to provide drama in a second. And Popovich is not one to hold his tongue. Okay, and we already knew that he was not a big fan of Donald Trump, but wait till you get a load of the new quotes. So here's what the coach of the Spurs said. I've been amazed and disappointed by so much of what this president has said and his approach to running this country, which seems to be one of just a never-ending divisiveness. But his comments today about those who have lost ones in times of war and his lies that previous presidents Obama and Bush never contacted their families are so beyond the pale, I almost don't have the words. Okay, so pretty harsh words there. He's referring, of course, to Donald Trump coming out and going, I hear the other presidents never called the families of the fallen soldiers. I hear that. And then when challenged on it, he's like, I don't know if that's true. Then why did you just say it if you don't know it's true? Okay, so I don't know, the generals tell me that, right? So now Popovich is also a U.S. Air Force veteran, and he was particularly galled by those comments. And of course, it's not true. Yesterday on the show, we showed you how Bush and Obama have reached out to family members repeatedly. So now Popovich continues. He's talking to Dave Zirin, who's a great sports and political reporter, and he says, this man in the Oval Office is a soulless coward who thinks they can only become large by belittling others. This has, of course, been a common practice of his, but to do it in this manner and to lie about how previous presidents responded to the deaths of soldiers is as low as it gets. A soulless coward. Damn! My bad, apparently they do monster dunks in San Antonio. So I can't I'm going to give you more devastating quotes from Popovich, but I can't love the Spurs any more than I already do. I remember a story of a player joins the Spurs this many years ago, and he's told the practice starts at I don't remember the exact time now, but around noon or something. And he says, okay, good, so I'll see you guys at noon. They go, no, you'll see us at 9. So why? The practice starts at noon. No, practice starts when the captain arrives. And who's the captain and when does he arrive? And back then it was Tim Duncan. And Tim Duncan liked to start practice 3 hours early. Oh, I love these guys. I love these guys. Hard work, teamwork, that's how you get ahead, not divisiveness and the crazy stuff that Trump does. Anyway, so along those lines, Heart of a Champion Greg Popovich continues. He says, we have a pathological liar in the White House, unfit intellectually, emotionally, and psychologically to hold this office, and the whole world knows it, especially those around him every day. People who work with this president should be ashamed because they know better than anyone just how unfit he is, and yet they choose to do nothing about it. This is their shame most of all. Dagger! As Kevin Harlan used to say. Okay. Now, I don't normally do the tweets of people's reactions, but these were really good. So let me give credit where credit is due. Micah Adams writes in, there's a 6 billion % chance Donald Trump is going to publicly call for Greg Popovich to be replaced as head coach of U.S. national team. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Any second now. There's no way that doesn't happen. Bart Hubbuck, also with a great tweet here, writes in, looking forward to Trump's rage tweets on the failing Spurs and loser coach Greg Popovich, winners of 5 NBA titles in the last 15 years. Tick-tock, tick-tock, any second now. And then finally, I agree with Shea Serrano, who wrote in, all I want is for people to feel about me the way I feel about Greg Popovich. Here, brother. Totally agree. Go get him, Spurs. And the social justice warriors, the Golden State Warriors, that are also not showing up to Trump's White House, well, this is the one thing the 2 best teams in the NBA can agree on. Sorry, King James. But you know it's true. Okay. All right. Now, more attacks against Donald Trump. Fun. So John McCain got a great honor the other night. He was awarded the Liberty Medal at the National Constitution Center. And he gave a great speech. I read the whole thing, and I just think that it was moving. Before I get to his shot against President Trump, which is great, and can you guess if Donald Trump counterattacked? Hold, we'll get to it. I want to actually read you other parts of the speech. And look, I'm patriotic to the point of almost being jingoistic. So you might not love the speeches as much as I did, but I'll just give you a small taste of it first. He said, we live in a land made of ideals, not blood and soil. We are the custodians of those ideals at home and their champion abroad. Now, I disagree with him on foreign policy a lot, but what he just said there in the first sentence is the most important thing. We are a land of ideals, not soil and blood. That's right. The American idea is an incredibly important one, whether it is properly executed from time to time, okay? And we try to make America a more perfect union. One more quote from him. McCain said, the most wondrous land on earth indeed. I've had the good fortune to spend 60 years in service to this wondrous land. It has not been perfect service, to be sure, and there were probably times when the country might have benefited from a little less of my help. But I've tried to deserve the privilege as best as I can, and I've been repaid 1,000 times over with adventures, with good company, and with the satisfaction of serving something more important than myself, of being a big player in the extraordinary story of America, and I am so very grateful. It's really a moving, great speech. And then he made this point. So I gave you that context because, yeah, it looks like if you just heard it in, outside of the context of the rest of the speech, a pot shot at Trump. But he was really talking about the idea of America and how important it is to preserve it. So here's what he said pretty clearly about the president.
The fear of the world we have organized and led the 3/4 of a century to abandon the ideals we have advanced around the globe, to refuse the obligations of international leadership and our duty to remain the last best hope of Earth for the sake of some half-baked spurious nationalism cooked up by people who would rather find scapegoats than solve problems. Is as unpatriotic as an attachment to any other tired dogma of the past that Americans consigned to the ash heap of history.
Okay, so look, everybody's talking about the half-baked, spurious nationalism, but again, within the context of the speech, which was so glowing about his love for this country, you understand better that he means, hey, look, there's a right way to do love of country and a wrong way to do it. And to just rile people up with this America First agenda is not the patriotic and the American thing to do. I think it was very well said. And of course, it has caused Donald Trump to get agitated. So here he is on a talk show where he responds.
We need some votes from some of the Republicans that, for some reason, they weren't there on health care. They should have been. We thought we had it, but John McCain voted no, which was a shocker. We were
taking shots at you again yesterday.
Well, it's a shocker, and, you know.
You heard what he said yesterday, Senator McCain.
Yeah, well, I hear it, and people have to be careful because at some point I fight back.
Yeah.
You know, I'm being very nice. I'm being very, very nice. But at some point I fight back, and it won't be pretty.
By all accounts, John McCain has a terminal disease. Can you just ease up for 1 second, dude? Can you just be classy for half a second? Okay, here's a possible answer. Hey, you know what? I was really disappointed in John McCain's vote on healthcare because we worked really hard to repeal and replace Obamacare. I'm assuming that I'm Donald Trump there and a Republican that felt that way. And I saw that John McCain had said that about me, but I thought the rest of the speech was great, and if he really meant it about me, that's disappointing. But look, he's had great service to this country, and it's okay to disagree from time to time, and I really wish him well, and I hope he gets better. That's not hard, right? And wouldn't it be amazing if you also actually felt that way? But no, he's got a terminal disease? Oh, wait till I hit him. It won't be pretty. All right, so McCain is asked, of course, he doesn't get anywhere near as challenging as Trump does, but let's hear his answer.
Let's go to your speech last night.
Okay.
Were you addressing the president or Bannon or the group in total?
I think that what is clear is what I was talking about as an environment here of non-productivity, of a reversion to the attitude of the 30s, which was one of the major reasons why we fought World War II.
So he's referring to the America First movement that also existed in the 1930s, and it was an ugly movement, and luckily we got away from it, and we wound up fighting the Nazis instead. Some of those folks in the so-called America First movement thought the German leaders at the time were not so bad. And doesn't sound very America First to me, but that's the direction that they went, and it didn't prove to be effective. It proved to be incredibly counterproductive, but luckily as a country we decided to go in a different direction, and that's what John McCain is pointing to. And he didn't say Trump, he didn't say Steve Bannon, he said we just don't agree with that direction for the country. When pressed later about Trump attacking him, he said, quote, "I've faced far greater challenges than this." And of course, if you don't remember, their feud goes all the way back to Donald Trump when he was running for president. Asked about McCain's comments, McCain was probably supporting Lindsey Graham, a very good friend and colleague of his in the Senate, who was also running for president. Donald Trump said, McCain, he's not a war hero. Remember, he was shot down in Vietnam, spent 5.5 years being tortured by the North Vietnamese. Most importantly, they said they found out he was an admiral's son and offered to let him go. And he said, I'm not going anywhere unless you release all of your U.S. captors that were with him in that Hanoi Hilton. He would not leave even though he was being tortured. So I have had great disagreements with John McCain. And I think his stance on war is completely wrong-headed. And I've made that very, very clear throughout. But to say that he's not a war hero, and of course then Trump followed up famously by saying, I prefer people who weren't captured. Well, to say that that's a bridge too far and a bridge too ugly is way understating it. And of course, if you remember, Donald Trump ran from Vietnam with some bone spurs in one of his heels, and he doesn't remember which one. I guess he prefers people who dodged the draft and didn't serve their country. As to which one is the real patriot, well, that one is exceedingly clear, and if you can't see it, there might be something wrong with you. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, I've got great news about ISIS. We could use that, couldn't we? And, of course, the Republicans with another way of robbing the poor. Just note, whenever they talk about tax cuts, they say, well, no, that's going to help you guys. It's going to trickle down on the middle class and the poor. I'm going to show you how, no, it's not just tax cuts, because they'd like to increase taxes on the poor. They are unbelievable. We'll show it to you when we come back.
I'm going to tell you a story, and then I want you to tell me what you think about the way I reacted to the situation, and if you thought it was acceptable.
Guilty. Oh, wait, I gotta wait for the story.
I know Anna Kasparian has some stuff to say, and the world needs to hear it.
But then he became woke man. I hate it.
I love it.
And Susan and I used to do this trick where we would elongate the videos so that we would look skinnier.
That is the most positive drug dealing story I've ever heard of.
Bears don't give a fuck. I trust you guys, audience. Don't let me down.
You don't believe in ghosts? Try my pussy. Don't.
The food at Turks is phenomenal.
Hey, we got spotted TYT. What is this little stuff?
Oh, death.
Did you want to poop outside? No, I poop here. It's fine because I bury it. And you know what happens in that water? Turns frogs gay.
And they can't stand the establishment. And then I slipped and fell on my ass.
Yes, I gotta get comfortable here.
That is tomorrow's joke, Jay. When your time is up, what wouldn't you do for just one more day?
I'm gonna try to have sex with you. If you don't want it right now, just roll up a newspaper and hit me.
Hottest club I've ever been to is my bedroom. And people often say that you are the Jasmine of TYT.
Yep.
Please, I am not with you, baby. You gotta let me go.
Oh God, this hurts so bad.
You're alive! You're alive! The last day is not any more valuable than today's.
Complex subject. Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
You said I had small hands. They're not smaller. I never heard that one before.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're going to help us run the country.
Like this.
It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us. Whoa! Democracy!
United!
We are! Too strong! There's thousands of volunteers, and you can be among them.
With Wolfpack, the mission is so clear.
Money is killing our democracy. 96% of Americans want it. When you get the power back, oh, that feels good. This is just the beginning. Go get them, man. Up and at them. Knock, knock. We're coming for them! Wolf-pack.com. All right, back on the Young Turks. Ranting Ryan writes in about our new favorite Republican, Bettina. Wait, you think this hurts her chances in Florida? You never know, maybe it does help. Unregistered Chicano writes in, by sheer coincidence, Bettina will now be co-hosting InfoWars. Okay, you're right, I almost played these clips. I'll play them for you now.
It is an alien force, not of this world. It's not human intelligence! We're under attack! I want to go to space.
To meet blonde Jesus in his quartz ship. Okay, yes, who knows? Maybe she got the idea from Alex.
I watched her talking about it, and they were voiced over because she was speaking in Spanish. So that's her first hurdle she has to get by. So now she's pushing that she saw alien Jesus, therefore it's going to help her because she can't run for a Republican seat speaking any Spanish.
Oh yeah,
strike one.
I hear you. Well, it's an interesting strategy. You never know. You never know. I Am Sock simply says, I'll have what she's smoking. And then on to Popovich, Smooth says, if the entirety of the NBA played like the Spurs, I would be a fan again. Pop is a great teacher. Rafer Madness says, American politicians could eat a puppy in public at this point, as long as they said something mean about Trump afterwards. And Derek Martin says, I love when Trump bullies an 80-year-old veteran with a brain tumor on the way out of his last term. Melania, where you at? Remember, her campaign is to stop online bullying. Okay, to be fair to Donald Trump, he wasn't online. He was on the radio. Okay, we go over here. We have a deal, a rare deal in the Senate, and it's about health care, and it's relatively good news. It's only because Donald Trump last week gave us really bad news, so now both parties have to scramble to find a way to fix the mess that he started. So this was about the cost-sharing reduction payments. Donald Trump said, yeah, I'm going to stop those. So a lot of people's premiums were about to go up, almost 30% in some cases, and we would add $194 billion to the deficit, and 1 million people would lose their insurance. So what's the upside? There was no upside. And he just said he wants to destroy Obamacare. So now, some Republicans worked along with Democrats to try to fix this. I'll tell you why in a second. First, let me tell you the news. Senators Lamar Alexander, who is a Republican of Tennessee, and Patty Murray, a Democrat of Washington, have reached a deal in principle to restore the Affordable Care Act cost-sharing reduction payments for 2 years in exchange for more state flexibility in Obamacare. Good. That means that we're back to normal for 2 more years, at least in that regard. Let's talk a little bit more about that state flexibility. The deal would make it easier for states to obtain waivers to customize Obamacare rules to their needs. States have complained that applying for waivers is a long and complicated process. So that's not a completely wrong complaint. But during the Obama administration, part of the reason that they wanted to make sure that if you were going to get a waiver from the Affordable Care Act, and this is in the law, your plan had to be better than the Affordable Care Act. Either premiums are lower or it covers more things, and it could not take away things like coverage for pre-existing conditions. Now, if they loosen that up, then some of the plans might not be as good as the Affordable Care Act, and then start a race to the bottom, and so that, hey, look, it's cheaper. Come here. Oh, yeah, but it was short-term, sad day for you. As soon as you get sick, you don't have insurance. So you got to watch out for those tricks. The Republicans can't wait to put more what they call responsibility to the states, but it's actually a trap in a lot of ways. Now, this deal, if it comes to fruition, and it was announced today that they're going to have this deal, is not the end of the world. It's actually overall a good thing. And in fact, President Donald Trump, when asked about the deal, called it a short-term solution, but appeared supportive of the proposal. So that's also a positive. So why are they doing it? Why in the world would Republicans want to do something that would shore up the Affordable Care Act and not destroy it? Well, that's because they were complaining to President Trump before he signed that executive order, hey, this will take into effect immediately, in which case we could all lose our seats in 2018 because it's really bad. It's terrible for the voters. We want to do it. We're with you. I mean, we want to help out our donors, and more people lose insurance, and it's higher. I don't care. Well, I just don't want to do it right before the election because I might lose my seat. So then they go over to the Democrats and they go, okay, I'll give you something you want, which is people not suffering. In return, you let me delay this till after the election. Now, look, I can't blame the Democrats on that. To extend it for 2 years is a good thing. The Republicans might lose the elections anyway, in which case then they can't repeal this provision anymore. So if I was Patty Murray, I'd have done the deal too, and assuming that it goes all the way through, good job by the Democrats, but understand why the Republicans are doing it. It's their insurance policy for not losing their seats in 2018, and there's no other reason why they would have done it, and they were clear on the record earlier telling Trump, be careful, that's really bad, and they had worried about, of course, their own asses, and this is what this is, covering their asses. But overall, good for America. God bless. Okay, so now we go to excellent update for you guys. Let me go here just in case. Okay. So Just Democrats is a strong progressive wing of the Democratic Party. It was launched earlier this year. In fact, a couple of days after Donald Trump's inauguration. I was one of the founders, and am still one of the founders, of course, by definition. Anyway, and so Scott Galinsky from the TYT Network. His show is Secular Talk. You should check it out. And the rest of the team is largely from Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2016. So real progressives, real strong, and totally uncorrupted. No PAC money, okay? We're not interested in corporate money, and we're not taking corporate PAC money. Go to justdemocrats.com and read the entire platform. If you're a progressive, I think you'll love it, and it is actually deeply popular with Americans. Almost everything on that platform tests at a majority of Americans agreeing, and almost all of it at over 60% of Americans agreeing. So why wouldn't people run on it? Well, don't worry, they are. Here comes the candidates. So far, Just Democrats had 16 candidates until yesterday. Let me show you who those folks are. By the way, look at how wonderful that diversity is, okay? And one is an incumbent, Ro Khanna. Everyone else is running in primaries, some in Republican seats, some in Democratic seats. We have no issue with replacing corporate Democrats. We'd love to do that. Of course, the ultimate objective is to replace Republicans and actually get progressive policies. But now, let me show you another picture, although they look very similar. Okay. We now have 29 candidates. 13 new candidates announced today. And we got to raise money for these folks. If you don't want corporate money taking over our politics, we've got to fight them with small donor money. We don't need anywhere near the amount of money that they have. But we do need money for infrastructure, and 29 candidates is a lot of candidates. So go to justdemocrats.com/go and make your voice heard. Replace corporate Democrats. Most importantly, replace those right-wing conservatives. I just want to tell you about two of them. You should please go to the website and check out all their stories, and also make sure that you've got a Just Democrats in your neck of the woods. And if you do, please support them. Volunteer. Donate, do whatever you need to do. Okay, so Jess King is a candidate in Pennsylvania's 16th district. She's going against incumbent Lloyd Smucker. He's a Republican, and he has the distinction of having raised the most amount of money in the House from the NRA. So he's completely unmoved by all the massacres, all the mass shootings. He continues to take a tremendous amount of NRA money and do exactly what he's paid to do. That's exactly the kind of corruption we can't stand. Now, if you say, well, he's a Republican, it must be in that part of Pennsylvania that's deeply red. Yes and no. This is an R+5 seat, meaning the Republicans have an advantage of just 5 points. And in 2008, Obama won this district. So it is winnable once the corporate Democrats get out of the way and we actually run strongly progressive campaigns that appeal to voters, things like Medicare for All, so you all have insurance, not just some of us. College for All, so your kids can actually live the American dream, not just rich people's kids. $15 minimum wage, so you can actually have a living wage and not be paid $7.25, which is atrociously low. But Smucker's going to argue for lower wages. Have that argument. Can't wait. And the fact that the corporate Democrats don't fight the Republicans on things when they say we should have lower wages is insane. Jess is not going to make that mistake. Justice Democrats are not going to make that mistake. So go support Jess King. And then I want to tell you about Doug Applegate. He's a Marine colonel and unabashed Bernie supporter and progressive. And he's running against Darrell Issa. You know, he almost beat him last time. He only lost by 1,500 votes. Darrell Issa was such a special snowflake that when Applegate ran accurate ads about him, he went and cried to the courts and said, "You said mean things about me, not fair." Well, the court disagreed and made Issa pay Applegate $45,000, which is awesome. See, that's a real fighter. Issa is this close to losing. He's one of the worst Republicans in Congress. Go make that happen. Go to justicedemocrats.com/go. Real progressives running real strong campaigns for real change. You support all the candidates when you go to justicedemocrats.com/go. Make it happen today. I'm excited, man. Can you imagine? Let us whisper of a dream. I mean, look, I want all of them to win, but if just half of those 29 candidates won, and all of a sudden there were, 15 Just Democrats in the House, that would be an earthquake. Everybody in Washington would go, "What is this?" Because right now, I got to be honest with you, they have tremendous disdain for progressives. They think, "Oh, you guys have no real power. You're never going to do anything. You're never going to win elections." Please, please prove them wrong. These are great candidates. Cori Bush is leading the protests in St. Louis. She's a real fighter. The Democratic incumbent there, Lacey Clay's got clay feet. He doesn't show up to any of the protests. He says, "Oh, I'm not like my dad." His dad was an actual civil rights leader. What does that mean, I'm not like my dad? Shouldn't you be embarrassed that you're not like your dad and you're not showing up and leading the people you're supposed to represent? I can go on and on. Paula Jean Swearengin, running as Joe Manchin in West Virginia. Let's go, let's go. That's why it's justicedemocrats.com/go. Let's get progressive victories. I know we can. Okay. Now, let me move on to the EPA. And this is part of the reason why we need those victories. Scott Pruitt sued the EPA over a dozen times, didn't like any of the rules. That's why he fought him in court. He is a person that when he was in Oklahoma would literally take memos from lobbyists from the oil industry and hand it in. Just write his name in there and hand it in as a proposal. That's who Scott Pruitt is. So now Gizmodo, just want to remind you, real quick summary of what he's done so far. Since he's been put in charge of the agency, Pruitt has allegedly made plans to water down federal scientific research on the climate, deflected from the issue during the natural disasters, and cut loose hundreds of employees in a deregulation push. We can get into a lot more detail on that, but I want to tell you about the news story. This broken by Bloomberg. And it is about radiation levels. Just when you thought they couldn't get worse, well, they're about to. The EPA's determination sets a level, the new determination sets a level 10 times the drinking water standard for radiation recommended under President Barack Obama. Now, radiation is not safe at any level. That is the consensus of scientists. But Scott Pruitt doesn't believe in science. He doesn't believe in scientists when it comes to climate change, and apparently he doesn't believe it when it comes to radiation. So he's like, yeah, let's just crank up the levels, 10x of what they were. I'm going to give you a sense of how much radiation that is in a second, okay? So let's continue here. Here is Daniel Hirsch, top expert in the field, saying, it's a really huge amount of radiation they are saying is safe. The position taken could readily unravel all radiation protection rules. Now, to give you a sense of the consensus, back in 2007, remember, Obama's not president, George W. Bush is president. A 2007 version of the same document stated that no level of radiation is safe. No level, okay? That was under Bush, another deeply right-wing Republican. So what do they do in this case? Well, get a load of this. The level that Pruitt is suggesting is equivalent to as many as 5,000 chest x-rays or 7 to 14 chest CAT scans, according to a comparison with Food and Drug Administration data. Oh, it's perfectly fine. You'll be fine. Oh, if there's a nuclear meltdown like Fukushima or there's a dirty bomb and you really want to be safe, We're just going to tell you that you can drink the water that's filled with radiation, and we'll pretend it's safe. 5,000 chest x-rays. And that goes to everybody's kids, that goes to everybody's families, and Pruitt's saying it's fine. Let's go. Nuclear energy is awesome. All of the above. Fossil fuels are great. Nuclear is great. And if there's a meltdown, you just drink the water filled with radiation. Who cares? The EPA is supposed to look out for us, the citizens. It's not supposed to look out for the industry. Should it take the industry into account? Of course it should. You should balance interests. I understand that. But your number one interest should be to the citizens of the United States. I know that you have received untold legalized bribes from the fossil fuel industry and all the different energy industries, Scott Pruitt. But you're not supposed to work for them. You're supposed to work for us. And he certainly does not. Last quote here is from Jeff Ruch, who is a public employee for environmental responsibilities, and he's their executive director. He said, I knew that under Scott Pruitt, EPA is in climate denial, but now it appears to be in radiation denial as well. This appears to be another case of the Pruitt EPA proclaiming conclusions exactly opposite the overwhelming weight of scientific research. These are dangerous people, and now we live in dangerous times. God help us if there is actually radiation. They're going to allow it, and they're going to tell you it's safe, when it isn't anywhere near safe, and almost all scientists agree that it's not safe. Okay, cross your fingers. Told you to brace for impact. Okay, well, let's go to the next story. Okay. Now, Donald Trump told us that, hey, don't worry, tax cuts are great. We're going to have big, beautiful tax cuts, and it's going to go to the middle class and the poor mainly. I mean, a little bit to the rich, but that's just going to help you guys anyway. Turns out, not the case. So, great story from Arthur Delaney at HuffPost here. First, explaining the context, President Donald Trump says his tax reform plan will help working people, but Republicans are mulling a clampdown on the only part of the tax code that specifically benefits low-income workers. And that's the Earned Income Tax Credit. And people don't talk about that enough. Honestly, neither do I. It's a great program. It's for the working poor. You can't get it if you're not working. And it gives you a little bit of supplemental income so you can pay your bills and pull yourself up by the bootstrap, which is what Republicans claim that they want as they go and attack it in reality. So let's show you the reality. So the loss of a tax benefit is often considered a tax increase. That's why House Speaker Paul Ryan and White House Economic Advisor Gary Cohn have conceded that some middle-class Americans could face a tax increase under their plan due to the loss of personal exemptions and itemized deductions. Limiting the number of people who benefit from the Earned Income Tax Credit would be tantamount to hiking taxes on relatively poor working families. So, there's several different layers here. Earlier, they had conceded, if we take away some itemized deductions, it's not going to hurt the rich that much, but the middle class can get really hurt by that. So when we say tax cuts, we mean only for the rich. The middle class actually could get tax increases. Now, with the EITC, they're saying, and by the way, the poor can also get tax increases. What did we tell you? It's just tax cuts for the rich. And it's redistribution of wealth to the top. They're not just done just giving the tax cuts to those guys. They want to take from you. So let's give you the details. The Earned Income Tax Credit provides a big wage bonus for parents who earn modest incomes. But about 28 million households benefited from the credit in 2015. It was created in 1975 and it has been expanded a half a dozen times. So that's a lot of folks who benefit from it. More than 10% of the country. And remember, every one of them is working. So let's give you a sense of how much they get and what salaries get it, okay? If a married couple with 3 kids earns less than $23,000, they can get a tax credit payment of $6,318, with the size of the credit falling to zero as the couple's income approaches $54,000. So if you don't work, you don't get this at all. If you work and you're above $54,000, great, there's other tax credits for the middle class, but you're not going to get this because this is for the working poor. Okay, so it's phased out at $54,000. But if you're working hard and you've got a family and you're struggling to make ends meet, this helps you get you over the top, hopefully, so you can feed your kids, etc. So It's one of the best programs we have for the working poor, and I'm actually proud of America for having this. It's one of the things I think that is underrated. So, how are the Republicans going to destroy it? Are they going to say, well, the working poor are bums? Well, they can't say that. It's just welfare? They can't quite say that. With tax cuts, well, this is a tax increase. So what are they going to say? Fraud. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's got a lot of fraud. We got to crack down on it. So here they go. Past studies cited by the Congressional Research Service have suggested most of the errors actually result from honest mistakes, such as separated parents both claiming the same dependents. Now, if you're a multi-millionaire or a billionaire, you've got an army of accountants, and you can afford to get it exactly right. You're someone earning $23,000, and could you make a mistake from time to time in your accounting because you went to H&R Block, which, by the way, is one of the issues. No disrespect to H&R Block. They didn't name them specifically. Just throwing out a random name there. Okay, or, you know what? You didn't know that once you're separated, you can't both claim it. So, yes, there are some issues with overpayment, but overpayment that gets immediately spent and put back into the economy anyway, and you're supposed to be helping the working poor. There should never be, look, if, in my perfect world, there are no mistakes, right? But apparently, according to the Congressional Budget Office, or Research Service, it is mainly honest mistakes. They don't care. They're going to punish you. So, now you want to know what the real problem is in the IRS? The difference between what people owed the IRS and what the agency managed to collect averaged $458 billion a year from 2008 through 2010, or about an 18% gap, according to the most recent data available. Now, that's for all taxpayers. Now, if there's $458 billion of fraud, that's what the Republicans would call it, that's a $500 billion amount. Overall, for all taxpayers, where do you think you can get the most amount of money? If you concentrated on the higher income brackets, well, if they're committing fraud, you're not going to make it up. No, we would never be for that. They think like we don't like the rich. No, we just want everybody to be treated fairly. So if you at a minimum, if you did it evenly throughout all the tax brackets, you'd get a lot more money recovered for the Treasury from people who are in the higher income brackets. And remember, you'd only recover it if they're doing fraud. Wouldn't that be a great thing? But they're not spending money in that direction. They're spending money to target the poor. It is unreal. Okay, I'm going to give you more details here. They say the single biggest contribution to this tax gap was people underreporting business income on their individual returns, which added up to $125 billion in lost tax revenue each year. So, part of this is what they call pass-through income. You want to guess who does pass-through income for all of his income? You're going to be shocked to find out that's Donald J. Trump. So they are not going to target that. The biggest area for fraud, where the most amount of revenue can be recouped, they are not going to target. Instead, they're going to go after the poor. So the details on that. Is it really effective? The IRS already devotes a disproportionate amount of effort toward combating earned income tax credit errors, with more than 400,000 of the 1.2 million audits last year targeting EITC claims from taxpayers making less than $25,000 a year, according to IRS data. Are you kidding me? This was before the new crackdown led by Kevin Brady, the Republican who's head of the House of Ways and Means Committee. Okay? A third of all their enforcement went to people making under $25,000. What are you going to recover from them anyway? Now they're going to target the poor even more. And as Delaney points out here, the government doesn't get a very good return on its investment for all that effort, said Elaine Mag, an expert at the Tax Policy Center. It's an especially poor investment considering how much more the IRS could recoup by targeting higher income filers, according to the Government Accountability Office. Those groups are nonpartisan. Government Accountability Office is like, look, there's all this errors and fraud, and you're telling me we should spend most of our resources trying to target the fraud of people or errors of people making under $25,000? Wouldn't it make more sense to recoup more from the other brackets? No. Always let the rich skate and punish the poor. Why? Because the poor don't have any money to give to political donations. The guys in the upper brackets are political donors. We have private financing of elections. Who do you think they work for? They work for private interests. The public interest be damned. This is yet another example of that. And when Trump said, oh, don't worry, I'm going to look out for the average guy, he must have had a good belly laugh in private. He's coming to crack down on the middle class and the poor and give almost everything to the rich. This is income redistribution to the top. So whatever they accuse progressives of, they actually want to do. It is grotesque. And it is Trump 101. All right, I got to take a break here. When we come back, the devastating story of what happened to an African-American man in Utah. We have the video for you guys. It's hard to look at, but I want you to understand, gives you at least some sense of why some folks in the NFL and across the country might be protesting. This is what they want to deny, but as you'll see with your own eyes, it is undeniable. We'll do that when we return.
Brett has a cat. I'm moving away from the controversial stuff we were discussing prior to this going live to talking about pussy. Because it's a pussy cat.
Here's the thing. I think the cats are dumber. Everyone thinks that cats are smarter because they found a way to just, like, not care about you and have a home and food.
Right.
But cats are stupid. They're like children. Like, cats, everything they do, it's like, cat, do you want to take a bath right now?
Yeah.
Because you're fucking gross. And they're like babies and, like, toddlers. We're like, no, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
I just lick it. And you're like, are you sure that's a good idea? Because I think you might get hair caught in your throat. And the cat's like, no, it's fine. They're stupid. And then, like, they're just like babies where it's like, I pooped, and then it's like, did you want to poop outside? No, I poop here. It's fine because I bury it. Like, they're idiots. They're like children. And then dogs are like husbands in sitcoms.
Why?
Where they're just like, listen, when do we eat? And I love you for that. Also, I'm going to try to have sex with you. If you don't want it right now, just roll up a newspaper and hit me.
That's so true. Although Charlie never tries to hump me, always tries to hump Christian. But you know what?
Are you jealous by that?
No, I'm not jealous. I just think it's interesting because I think Charlie might be a gay dog, and I love him no matter what.
One, two, three, four.
There's always these weird cream cheese options. I can never just find the plain. What about salmon? Do I look like a grizzly bear? Here, try this veggie. Here's the plain. Where is it? You're more of a grape drink kind of guy, right? Or try this mouthwash. Where's the plain? Do you like sexual healing? Where is the plane? Where's the plane? Where's the plane? Where is it? Where's the plane? Dude. Anna Rasparian. No, I want the plane. Supervisor! Aren't you the supervisor? Isn't the whole point of being supervisor? Why do you get to decide my cream cheese options? At what point did you decide there'd be no plain cream cheese? I don't understand. Take it easy, man. No, this is true just like with politics and anything else. If we don't stand up for ourselves, they're just going to fuck us even harder. You're not going to believe this. They kicked me out of the kitchen. I got my eye on a face with an E on me.
host Cenk Uger, and we've got tweets for you guys. Belinda says Cenk is still mouthing the sound bites, and then she has a string of letters, ROFLMAO. I understand that has something to do with laughter. I didn't realize that I was mouthing the sound bites, and I can't believe that I do that. I don't realize I'm doing it at all. Here, let's just try one random one. I don't know. I just did that one on purpose. Okay. All right. Scott Remington writes, and don't get too excited about the short-term health care deal. The White House is already backtracking on Trump saying he supports it. Your mama says, I've been giving money to Justice Dems monthly since their inception. Hope they can get at least a few corpus out in 2018. Yes, they will. But we got to support them. By the way, they're trying to get to 40,635, which is a very specific number by Friday. So let's try to make that happen. JusticeDemocrats.com/go. Vultramax says, a little radiation in your drinks isn't going to kill you immediately. So I like that Vultramax still exists. Not only does radiation cause cancer, it also damages your genes. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Just take a couple of thousand chest x-rays in your water and see how that turns out. Okay, now we go to good news. Shockingly, we have good news on the ISIS front. So, I'm going to go to Reuters here. U.S.-backed militias raised a flag inside Raqqa Stadium on Tuesday. A Reuters witness said, as a 4-month battle to take the Islamic State's Syrian capital came to an end. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Raqqa! We got him. We actually got him. Okay, now, let me temper that a little bit, okay? It's not over. It's not like ISIS is wiped from the planet, and it's not exactly weak. But yes, Raqqa was definitely their capital, and losing Raqqa is a gigantic blow to ISIS, so it is really good news. So, as Reuters explains the context, Raqqa was the first big city Islamic State captured in early 2014, before its rapid series of victories in Iraq and Syria brought millions of people under the rule of its self-declared caliphate, which passed laws and issued passports and money. Like they said, it was a 4-month battle. The militias that took it were mainly Kurdish, but definitely Arab militias in there as well. And they celebrated together, so it was a coalition, but together. And did they have U.S. help? Yes, they did. So let's give you details on how they won. The stadium and hospital became the last major positions held by the Islamic State after the departure of some of its fighters on Sunday, leaving only foreign jihadists to mount a last stand. And they did, and they lost. And they were mainly killed, but some also driven out. The SDF, that is a collection of Syrian militia that won the battle here that we support, has been supported by a U.S.-led international coalition with airstrikes and special forces on the ground since it started the battle for Raqqa City in early June. And so, look, all this is complicated, and there's an incredible amount of different militias with different interests inside Syria. I've been a proponent of using special forces more, and good to see the special forces seem to have at least helped here in this case. Airstrikes is a little, again, it's not a black and white issue, but it's a little bit more difficult because it's more imprecise and leads to more civilian deaths, which oftentimes makes it harder to win. But with special forces, you could be more directed, and obviously they were directed correctly here, okay? But we didn't do most of the fighting at all. The overwhelming share of the fighting was done by the actual Kurdish and Arab militias. And now the SDF advance since Sunday also brought control over a central city roundabout where Islamic State once displayed the severed heads of its enemies, and which became one of the last lines of defense as the battle progressed. So, look, I read a number of accounts of what happened inside Raqqa when the Islamic State controlled it, and it was all horrific. And so this is great news, but understand that there are a number of factors that led into it. So first of all, if you want to give Donald Trump credit, I'm not going to begrudge you that. He's the president right now, and so to whatever degree he continued the policies that were in place already, Good. At least he didn't change him. He could have screwed him up. It's Donald Trump, but he didn't. Now, am I coloring it by saying he didn't change the policies? Well, so let me give you the two sides of it. In terms of the overall strategy, Donald Trump never made a public statement about change strategy. And there was internal reporting, which I gave to you on another episode of the Young Turks, saying they didn't know what to say because the strategy was the same as Obama's. So Trump was just waiting around to see if he could put a different twist on it, but they never got around to doing that because this is the same strategy. But you know what? If you want to say the increased bombings of civilians, which Trump authorized, helped, you'd have to look more into the details. I don't think increased bombing of civilians ever helped, but they did take Raqqa, and the only change that Trump made to any of the strategies that were already happening on the ground was to allow for more latitude in the bombings, which means, yes, it's okay to kill more civilians. So I'm just telling you the whole reality of what happened here. So War Monitor, Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, said Islamic State was now completely cleared from the city. So more good news. And one last overall context here. Islamic State has lost swaths of territory in Syria and Iraq this year, as Reuters reports, including its most prized possession, Mosul. And in Syria, it has been forced back into a strip of the Euphrates Valley and the surrounding desert. So they lost the biggest city they had in Mosul. They lost their capital in Raqqa. They've lost a lot of the oil fields and hence the source of their revenue. And now they're starting to get surrounded and their territory is dwindling and their power is dwindling. So part of it was a strategy that we executed along with the fighters inside Syria and Iraq, and including the Iraqi government. Raqqa's in Syria, but Mosul's in Iraq, and they were in both countries. And part of it was that their reign was so brutal that the locals were oftentimes happy to help us. Now, again, it's very complicated. It's not a black and white issues, and some of the locals were in different directions. But overall, the stories I read from places like Raqqa were that people couldn't wait for liberation from ISIS. And so it appears today they have gotten that liberation. And no matter what the reason was and which side you're on, that is great news for the planet. Okay? All right, so now, turning from good news to unfortunately disastrous news. Okay. Patrick Harmon was a 50-year-old black man living in Utah, in Salt Lake City. He's originally a St. Louis native, as you'll see in some of our coverage in this story. And he was acting a little bit erratically. He was on his bicycle, and cops pulled him over. People wonder why there's a Black Lives Matter movement, why players in the NFL are protesting systematic police abuse. Well, this is part of the reason why. Now, I'm going to show you a video here. If you're crazy, this is not the video to watch. If you care about what's actually happening in America, then you got to see this. But here, the warning is very specific here. The man you're going to see here, Patrick Harmon, is in the last minutes of his life, the last seconds of his life. And I want you to pay attention to when he runs away and what happens. Because I'm going to read you afterwards what the police claimed happened and how they said it was incredibly clear that Harmon was about to threaten their life. But you're going to see the actual video for yourself with your own eyes here. So here's what happened.
Understand, Patrick, you already know about your warrant, right? Okay, well, I believe that. But I need you to take your backpack off for me, okay? Take your backpack off for me. Put your hands behind your back. Priority shots fired. Start medical. Okay, cover him. I got him. Hey, Kurt. Start medical. Shots fired. We got one thing to do.
Look, I don't know what part of that video is more haunting. when you start watching it, he's going to be dead within 30 seconds. When he's shot and bleeding out and they handcuff him anyway, they already took the backpack off. They already knew he had no weapons. But no, that's not what the police say. So let me tell you how it went down here. On Wednesday, as CNN reports, after a 7-week investigation, the Salt Lake County District Attorney concluded the officers' use of deadly force was justified because the officers said they feared Harmon was going to hurt them, according to a letter the district attorney sent to the Salt Lake County Sheriff and the city's police chief detailing his investigation into the incident. You just saw the video. There's no other video. There's no other evidence. So they say, no, that guy, as he was running away, put them in mortal danger. They thought they were going to die any second from Harmon, and that's why they had to shoot him in the back. And then officials look at it and go, oh yeah, absolutely. That's right. Justified. You wonder why people are angry. All right, I'll give you more details of their excuses. Harmon was stopped by a police officer on the evening of August 13th after he rode a bicycle across 6 lanes and a median, according to a narrative laid out by the district attorney, Sim Gill. Harmon was required to have a red rear taillight on his bicycle, the officer told him. Oh, I didn't know he was that dangerous. He was missing a red rear taillight on his bicycle. And that's why they had to shoot him 4 times in the back, because he was such a big danger. Now, look, was he acting erratically? Yes, going across those lanes and going across the median. It turns out he had mental health issues. If I saw a guy doing that, I'd say, whoa, that's dangerous. Let me make sure I pull him over. That makes sense. I don't know if Salt Lake City has people who can help with mental health issues. All police departments should. Some do. San Antonio does, and they do a great job with it, right? And I would call that person for help. But would I think this guy's on the precipice of killing me with his missing taillight on his bicycle? I'm not sure that's the conclusion I would reach. Fox, and that was the officer who shot him, later told investigators that as Harmon was running away, he stopped and turned back towards the officers with a knife in his hand, yelling, "I'll effing stab you." You saw the video. There is no other video. So they said, no, yeah, perfectly clear. He was clearly running back towards the officers. The officers were about to die. They saw the knife, and then they had to shoot him. Is that the video you saw? Go back and rewatch it. Officer Fox said he feared if he didn't immediately use deadly force, Mr. Harmon was going to stab him and or the other officers. Well, if that's what they saw, it certainly wasn't clear, because that is not what the rest of us saw. So, if you slow down the video, maybe you see him looking back. Maybe you could make a case that as he was running away, he turned around a little bit. I don't know where the knife is. They claim it's clear that the knife's in the video. You go back, slow it down as much as you like, and watch the video again. No. In their version, and this is what's the unbelievable part, it was clear that the guy running away who was shot in the back 4 times was about to kill the police officers. And you wonder why people are angry. And you wonder why they protest. That's why they protest. Because that's not what happened. We can all see it with our eyes. It's not remotely what happened. Now, I told you he was a St. Louis native. Our TYT Politics reporter Jordan Chariton is in St. Louis covering the protest, and he actually caught up with Antoinette Harmon, who is his sister. And I want to show you a piece of that interview.
It's just a bunch of bull what they said. I just don't believe anything they said, because first of all, if he had a knife and a gun, they would have been released this camcorder footage. And to receive it last week, it was hard to watch. You know, it hurt me real bad. And then they say they shot him in the torso. They done covered this with the investigation of so much. And really, it's not fair. And for them to justify the police killing my brother and they put a knife. What you see in the video, I did not see him with no knife. They say you slow the video down, you can see a knife. No, that still didn't give them a reason to shoot my brother running. And they covered it up so much, they say torso. He was shot from the back. I mean, really, I didn't get no information from my brother until last week. And they just sent me a police report, and it's not complete because the FBI took over.
So let's break it down a little bit further. Listen to what she said. So first of all, the cops tell you, don't believe your lying eyes. There was a knife. Okay, let's grant him for a second that there was a knife. He's 50 years old. All the officers are in much better shape and much younger. So if he turned around in that half a second, they had no choice but to shoot him 4 times. They couldn't pause. They couldn't stop. They couldn't hold their guns and say, drop your weapon if he had one. They couldn't do any of that. They only had one choice. Put 4 bullets in him immediately. That's why I say the police training is wrong. Because they train him, kill him, and don't worry about it. We'll get you off later. And it's true, they do get him off later every time. Shot him in the torso. I would love to see an actual medical examiner to see if those bullets entered the front or the back. Because our eyes seem to indicate that they entered from the back. And so they just keep asking us to believe things that are not believable. For God's sake, have some decency. And if he's got mental health issues, just pause for a second before you kill him dead and then handcuff him as he bleeds out. Where's the humanity? But they train the humanity out of him. They say, no, it's okay. If there's even a slight doubt something might have looked like a knife for half a second, just kill the guy and be done with it. That's not what police who serve the entire community are supposed to do. All right, more from his sister.
We need to be heard, and they need to change laws. They really need to do something about these police. First of all, it's a lot of people that has mental illness problems, homelessness. It don't give them the right. These are people. They are important too. Educate them, help them. Don't kill them. Don't take their life because you have a gun. Really, you give them a chance to go to court. We need more places to help people that. Because my brother, he was bipolar schizophrenic. So
shouldn't be a death sentence. So
no, it shouldn't be.
Look, I told you about San Antonio before. If you actually train officers the right way and you give them the help that they need, you know what happens? The number of people with mental health issues who are killed in San Antonio by cops is way, way lower than the rest of the country. Why? Because they actually bother to train the cops right, so they serve the community. These things are fixable. Instead of fixing them, what do? They cover it up. They go, oh, well, okay, well, I was in danger for a half a second, so I just killed the guy. Who cares? I mean, I say who cares, and you say, well, I don't know. Do you know that who cares? Yeah, I do. I saw the video. Yes, I know. Look, I sometimes think, okay, what would and I hope you think this too, and this is to be fair to the police. What would you do in that situation? The guy's running away, it's erratic. Could you be in some degree of fear? Sure, you could be in some degree of fear. You got to chase him down. I guess that's a hassle. I hope you can do that. He turns around for half. Would you really shoot him? You're not sure if he's holding anything. And he was just crying a second ago. He's already taken off his backpack. He looks like he might have some mental health issues. You would have murdered him? You would have killed him? I hope to God you wouldn't have. And I hope to God we can train our police better than that.
Yeah. Sorry, they've been trained. There's protocol. We've seen it because we see enough of these videos. Once the person is on the ground bleeding to death, I'll be fast. They always keep guns on them. That's a training technique. They always cuff them. That's a training technique. How come they remember those all the time? It's because those are taught to them. So when you shoot a guy in the back, apparently that's okay as long as you're afraid that you're going to be embarrassed when you go back to the precinct and your fellow officers say, oh, you got away from me, didn't you? Oh, you're a loser. You're afraid of that is what you're afraid of. So then after all this goes on, also, if he had a knife, he was halfway cuffed. He had one arm behind his back and was approaching the second. You didn't check for weapons yet? I thought that's police protocol too. Why would you cuff someone? Why would you begin to cuff a suspect that has weapons on them? You just messed up before that too. So your training is all off. None of these stories conflict. All these stories conflict. None of them make any sense to go with your normal protocol. It's all made up, and they know the main thing they know is if you mess up, you can kill someone. We will cover for you, no matter what. Say what happened, even though it wasn't what happened. Say what happened. We'll believe you. We'll say it was perfectly plausible. It doesn't make any sense.
All right, we're going to give the last word to Sister Antoinette Harmon. You can watch the whole video on youtube.com/TYTPolitics. Jordan did a great job of interviewing her, but here she is.
Patrick was a beautiful person. He had a good heart. He was a family person. Pat was more of our protector. He met my children and myself. He was a family guy. He loved his family. He wasn't perfect.
He loved life.
He loved life, and he loved to enjoy it to the fullest before they took it from him.
And he was only 50, right?
He was 50. He would have been 51 tomorrow.
Wow.
And tomorrow's his birthday.
A birthday he's not going to have. It's not that folks in this country are protesting too much. They're not protesting nearly enough. Young Turks.
Hey guys, welcome to TYT Sports. Ben Mankiewicz here, and we have a new guest to introduce. Delighted to do this. Francis Maxwell is our World Cup expert, so we're going to start here with Group A, which is Brazil, Croatia, Mexico.
Brazil or Croatia are going to win this group. Unless weather hit Croatia, then maybe Cameroon. Mexico has no chance.
You know who has no chance? The U.S. Literally no chance.
Well, not sure if you're trying to piss me off or something, but not
What I
quite.
told you about Mexico was a fact. What you were talking about U.S. was simply an opinion. USA has no chance. That's a fact.
Of course they don't. I might have been mistaken, because in football, there's always a chance, even when there's no chance.
Like I said, what you gave was an opinion. What I gave you was a fact.
Calm the assholeness down. Like I said, in football, there are no facts about results. No one counted on Real when they blasted Bayern 5-0. No one counted when Brazil lost to Mexico in the Olympics. I was trying to be polite, but unfortunately, defectionist got the better of me. Just like I said, the U.S. has no chance. Personally, I'm rooting for Germany. I just think maybe Brazil and Spain.
Screw your BS. We all know it's Crimea for the win.
Faster than it was. Well, you can see it within the first 2 minutes. You're like, these guys are just, they're fast.
Absolutely, I agree. And they've always had that speed about them. It's always been about speed, but it's always
My hands, if they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee you.
You said I had small hands. They're not small. I never heard that one before.
Welcome to the Control Room exclusive members coverage of 2IT Postgame live from Rebel headquarters in sunny Los Angeles. So Jason, the air is electric after yesterday's postgame.
He's talking about Miami. You know, the only thing about this, Jason, is we've heard the Miami stories. I'm looking at Kasperian's interest here. She's giving him the cordial glance to the side, but I just don't know if it's really there.
Oh, that's where the vagina is.
Okay, that joke landed like Apollo 13 there. And Kasperian gives him the courtesy laugh, gives him the Edwin way.
Had you had sex at that point when you took that class?
Anyways, so
Hold on a minute. He's found an opening. Is he finding his way to come back, Jason? Eyeball! Jack Jr. coming back! With a comment. No one would have seen this coming.
And he's in the mood, and there's some music in the background. He's got the sideburns, he's got the long hair. You know,
He won't find himself. There's no way he's ready to. I mean, I've It's got it! It's unbelievable!
Every dog has his day, and this dog is having the best day of his damn life.
That was an outstanding postgame. If tonight's postgame is anything like last night's, we were in for another.
Exactly right, Francis. And don't forget to check out the TYT postgame after the Young Turks every weekday on TYTnetwork.com/memberslive.
Young Turks, Casper's here, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian. Casper, our members of the day are Andy Fuentes and Abigail Law. Of course, we're going to have a brilliant post game for them today. tytnetwork.com/join. I interviewed Beto O'Rourke yesterday. He is running against Ted Cruz. He's a congressman from El Paso, Texas, and knows the name of every single city and state in Texas and county. And that camera was moving. Okay. Anyway, check that interview out because he's amazing, and I think he's going to beat Ted Cruz, which is going to be awesome. So one more thing, Anna, before we get started. Tonight, I want everybody to know, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be showing a movie called Immigrant Prisons. Actually, you would love/hate this movie. You love the movie, but you hate what's going on. Using immigrants for slave labor. One guy, I think, was kept in immigrant prison for longer than 9 years.
It's insane.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane, and it's private prisons. So Brave New Films did a wonderful job with it. We're going to show it, and we're going to have a panel discussion of it. But you can watch it with us, the movie and the panel discussion, at tytnetwork.com/live. tytnetwork.com/live. And that's tonight, like I said, 10:30 Eastern. Okay. Jennifer writes in, rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off. Surely you know that already. Explaining what ROFLMAO is. Yes. Generally speaking, I did know that. Okay. Dances With says, if you said to me, name every single word in there, I don't know that I would have won that bet. Anyway, Dances With says, there are no sound bites. Cenk is a master ventriloquist. Because they call me about it.
Got to stop working out.
Okay, let's see.
Please forgive me if I'm being personal, but tell me about your sex life.
See, that was me.
Was that Paul Robertson?
Yes.
God, I love the soundboard sometimes. Not a lot, like not when you use it too much, but sometimes I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, brings back memories.
Antifa!
It's too soon.
Too soon.
Sorry. Behind what's it called? Inside Baseball on the soundboard. If you hear a soundbite with this squeak behind it, it's super old. Back when we couldn't control the sound of things and they came in, everything had a squeak. So that Tell Me About Your Sex Life one has a squeak, 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 squeak. If you can hear that, that's from way back in the day. Super back in the day.
All right, now you're going to make me play other random ones to see if they have the squeak. This is a guy who was doing gay conversion therapy. And this is a guy who would snuggle with other guys and rock back and forth as part of that therapy. And this is him hitting a pillow with a tennis racket. Okay?
Mom! Why did you do that to me?
Okay, now I play you that because we have a story of a gay Jewish Nazi that had a similar issue later in this hour that you don't want to miss. And you're right, I heard the squeak. All right.
We start off with some rather tragic international news. A double car bombing occurred in Somalia over the weekend, killing more than 300 individuals and wounding more than 300 others. Now, the bombing has not been claimed by any terrorist organization, although there is some evidence to indicate that Al-Shabaab, an Islamist group, was behind the attack. Now, recent reporting by The Guardian and other news outlets indicate that the double car bombing was done in response to a U.S.-led anti-terrorism mission that was carried out in August that unfortunately only killed civilians, 10 of which did die, others who were wounded. So let me give you the details on this latest attack. First, let me just say that this is the biggest terror attack bombing with the most victims in Somalia of all time, and so it was a story that deserved to be in the headlines of, every major news outlet in the U.S., but it hasn't really gotten much coverage. Now, the man who killed more than 300 people with a truck bomb in the center of Mogadishu on Saturday was a former soldier in Somalia's army whose hometown was raided by local troops and U.S. Special Forces 2 months ago in a controversial operation in which 10 civilians were killed. Now, initially, the U.S. government indicated that they were attacking leaders of Islamist groups, these radicals who are dangerous, but reporting later indicated that no, that is not what happened. All of those individuals who died were in fact civilians. Following the raid, this is a raid that happened this past August, in which 3 children ages between 6 and 10 died, local tribal elders called for revenge against the Somali government and its allies, the United States being one of its allies. The 10 people were civilians. They were killed accidentally. The government and relatives will discuss about compensation. We send condolences to the families. That was according to one of the politicians in Somalia following that failed, counterterrorism mission.
So real quick there, just so we're absolutely clear, the Somali government admitted, yes, there were in fact civilians that were killed, and it was totally botched. So there's no dispute about that. And in fact, they are offering what they call blood money to the relatives of the murdered civilians.
That's right.
And including the 3 kids, families, obviously. And they got granular. They went all the way down to compensating them for their animals that were killed in the raid, etc. Now, earlier in today's show, I gave U.S. Special Forces a lot of credit for the work that they did in Raqqa and retaking that city. But from time to time, it goes disastrously wrong, as it did in this case. And if ever there was a case of us killing civilians by accident, we hope, obviously, and in this case I think it was, coming back to haunt us and our allies, boy, this is it. This is as bad a case as you can get. Now, we make fun of Joe Scarborough because he famously once said, he's trying to figure out why Islamic radicals do terrorism. He said, I don't know, they hate us because they hate us. And he repeated it 3 times. No, oftentimes they hate us because we killed one of their family members.
Right.
In fact, we have stats about that later in this particular story.
Right, we do. And so I want to back up a little bit because there's a lot of context that I think a lot of Americans are unaware of because stories like this don't get attention. So do most Americans know what we're doing in Yemen or what we're doing in Somalia? Probably not. And the reality is, drone strikes began in Yemen and Somalia under the Obama administration, and he got criticized for that on this show on a regular basis. However, the drone strikes have been amplified under the Trump administration. He has essentially lifted combat restrictions and open the floodgates for more drone strikes in Somalia and in Yemen. And so in Somalia, there has been a civil war raging since 2009, and it is a war against the government of Somalia, which is aiming for a more secular country, and various Islamic groups, Al-Shabaab being one of them. And so Al-Shabaab throughout the Civil War has basically taken over certain parts of Somalia, and then because of U.S. involvement and other international countries getting involved, they have lost certain territories, and it goes on and on and on. But one thing that you should keep in mind is after this U.S.-led counterterrorism effort in August that led to the deaths of these 10 civilians, some of which were children, Al-Shabaab used imagery of their dead bodies in order to recruit individuals into their terrorist organization. And so we have to be careful with what we're doing. You have to make sure the intel is foolproof and that you're not killing innocent civilians and essentially being incredibly counterproductive in this foreign policy.
So, look, the guy who did the bombing is the one most responsible. Of course, no one's taking away responsibility from him. At the same time, actions have consequences, so let's be careful about our actions. And I got to be honest with you, I used to be more of an interventionist. So the situation in Somalia is really difficult, and if the government asks us for help in fighting Islamic radicals, I am very, very tempted to give them that help, because I don't want Islamic radicals taking over Somalia or other countries. On the other hand, when we intervene, we have made one mess after another. And so at what point do we realize that intervention is generally counterproductive? And here we are again on another day when it has been wildly counterproductive.
This form of intervention is wildly counterproductive. And so I'm not saying that we shouldn't ever get involved if there are terrorist organizations that are taking over entire countries, overthrowing, secular governments or whatever it is. But I am saying that if you are going to utilize, different military methods, like drone strikes, for instance, it's not, some frivolous thing. You have to be careful with the type of intel you have when you're trying to take people out. If you're killing innocent civilians, it will come and bite you, in the behind, and that's exactly what's happening here. Now, let's go to the double car bombing that happened this past weekend. Let's give you some details. Officials say that it involved two vehicles, a Toyota Noah minivan and a much larger truck carrying around 772 pounds of military-grade and homemade explosives. The target for both vehicles was the heavily guarded airport compound in Mogadishu, where the United Nations, most embassies, and the headquarters of the 22,000 strong African Union peacekeeping force, AMISOM, are based. So this was an intentional attack against, different government agencies and also international agencies that are supportive of the current Somali government. And so, of course, these Islamist terrorists are trying to target them and take them out. The minivan was stopped at a checkpoint several hundred meters short of its target, and the driver detained. The bomb later detonated, possibly set off by remote control or by security officials. I also want to note that as of Monday, around 167 bodies were buried, and they were unidentified because they were so badly burned that the government couldn't identify who the victims were. Also, the bigger truck bomb was detonated at a busy crossroads at least a kilometer from the Medina Gate. The explosion ignited a fuel truck nearby, which caused a massive fireball.
So let me give a couple more pieces of context here. First of all, let's also note that in May, when this raid happened,
August.
Oh, okay.
There have been a number of raids, but the one in August led to the 10 civilians being killed.
Okay, so the one in May led to 2 of our troops being wounded and a U.S. Navy SEAL being killed. So it's not just Somali civilians that are dying here, but our guys also died. So none of this has gone well at all. But I think the most important stat is the one I really wanted to give you guys. The United Nations did a study on why people join up with radical groups and commit acts of terrorism. Of the more than 500 former members of militant organizations interviewed for the report, 71% pointed to, quote, government action, including, quote, killing of a family member or friend, or arrest of a family member or friend as the incident that prompted them to join a group. So when people say, I don't know why they do it, well, it turns out we actually have decent evidence as to why they do it. 71% of the time, which is an overwhelming majority, it's because someone they know was either arrested or killed by a government they then later got radicalized against and committed a terrorist act against. So some of the issues are certainly complicated, but there are also some simple explanations. You kill someone's family member, they're going to want to kill you. That's kind of how it works, and that is why intervention that we have done for decades and decades in the Middle East has backfired on us. Because the more people we kill, the more people they want to kill in return. And that's the state of play right now.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, some news out of the U.S., including a popular book getting banned by one school district. We'll tell you which book it is.
Hey, Grace, how did you do this? She sent it from Alaska?
No, she just gave it to me.
What? You seen Grace? Grace?
Hey, what's up? Aaron, what do you like better? The rabies or the rabies? Go. Back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Filter not installed, a good Twitter handle, says on the serious issue about the shooting, he says, I totally agree with JR. If you notice the cops say, I got him, as if it's some sort of accomplishment, that makes me sick. Admiral Marsden says, they say no one is above the law unless you're a cop, a politician, or a rich white person. Truly, this case and others prove it. Now, on a lighter note, Matthew Veslag says, was kind of hoping Cenk would go on a tirade after that camera moved. Hashtag fuck it, we'll do it live. Okay. There's insanity in the control room tonight. And I should have said it at the time. I missed that opportunity. You're right. Jin Ho Choi says the war on terror is a for-profit business.
Yep.
Unfortunately, he's right. All right. What's next, Anna?
All right. A school district in Mississippi has decided to ban To Kill a Mockingbird from the reading list for its 8th grade students. Now, this isn't the first time To Kill a Mockingbird has received some criticism, backlash, or threats of a ban. However, the reason that school officials have given is fascinating, to say the least. So there have been more than 300 formal complaints against this book, and they've been reported by schools, colleges, and public libraries last year alone. And a lot of it has to do with some of the language that's used, and also a theme that's used in the book, which is, of course, if you read To Kill a Mockingbird, it has to do with a black man who's been falsely accused of rape. So there's sexual content in it as well. Now, a school administrator, a member of the school board to be specific, said there is some language in the book that makes people uncomfortable. So the N-word does appear in the book nearly 50 other times throughout Mockingbird, almost always in dialogue. The novel won its author a Pulitzer Prize for fiction and made the values of the civil rights movement, particularly a feeling for the god-awful unfairness of segregation, real for millions. And that was written by the Washington Post. And so it's just... go ahead, jump in. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, so look, the real reason that the book is banned in a lot of places is because it makes people in the South uncomfortable. It's about what happened in the 1930s in Alabama. That's where it's set, and it was released in 1960. Let me read you a part of what they explain in the book. So if you read the full context of the book, you'll understand that that it's not like the N-word is used in a positive way. No, it explains why it's so wrong, and that's part of what gets under some people's skin. So in one part of the book, the girl asks her father, what exactly is an N-lover? He says it's hard to explain, and he goes on to say it's ignorant, trashy people use it when they think somebody's favoring Negroes over and above themselves. It's slipped into usage with some people like ourselves when they want a common, ugly term to label somebody. So the book is incredibly clear on what a terrible word it is, and the people that use it are trash. So that gets under some people's skin. And so they're like, oh, what are you saying about Alabama? First of all, it's Alabama from the 1930s. If you're taking it personally, there's some chance there's something wrong with you. That you know, because it should be something you're saying, oh, well, thank God they wrote that book and showed how ugly racism was, and now we in Alabama and other places in the country are beyond it. But obviously we're not, because they're still trying to ban the book in so many different places in the country.
Right, exactly. So the recent example was in Biloxi, Mississippi. That is the school district that is calling for a ban on To Kill a Mockingbird. And when I say ban, it means that it's being taken off of the reading list for the 8th grade class. And look, I think that it's important to read these types of books because not only are they classics, but it reminds you of, you know, what the history of the country was. Even though it's a fictional book, it still touches on historical themes in the U.S. And it shows that, hey, you know, we have progressed somewhat, but more importantly, we have a dark past, and we don't want to go back to that dark past. The only way you prevent, you know, the cruel treatment that we experienced in history is to learn history. And what we're seeing right now is like this whitewashing of American history that I think is damaging.
I just want to say real quick that, you know, look, I imagine some African Americans could get upset at seeing the word 50 different times. But the overwhelming majority of African Americans are in favor of the book and want the book taught. And part of what the book did so well and why it was such a classic was it took the racist tropes of the past, things like you would see in The Birth of a Nation, where they have a man in blackface going around raping white women, and turned it on its head and showed that it was wrong. You know, that there's these assumptions made about African Americans and it isn't true. And so that's why the huge percentage of African Americans are, of course, in favor, not only just in favor of teaching the book, but quite upset, as Dion Cole was recently. He's a star, one of the stars of Blackish, and he so mad that they're taking the book away, especially in the South.
So we have a video of him kind of talking about this a little bit. He was at LAX, the airport, and he was approached by TMZ, and here's what he had to say about this whole debacle.
Why they keep trying to change history and trying to make it, they're trying to get it to the point where nothing ill has ever happened to black people ever in life. They're trying to make it that way. They like living in a fantasy right now, and they like, yo, they thinking that they're trying to take everything away. That's bull. That's BS, man. That's bullshit. That happened in history. I gotta keep that in there. Why would you take that away? Because then that shows black people where they came from, and it gives them more purpose to be proud of who they are and how we overcome. It's just like Mark Twain. They was trying to get rid of Mark Twain's book. No, keep all them niggas in the book. Keep all of them in there. Just to show kids coming up how many niggas they thought we were.
at the end there, he's does comedy and he's being funny, but they followed him for quite some time.
Yeah,
he had a lot to say about this, which I like. He reminded me of something and made a great point in the beginning there, which is that it's funny that when you try to take Confederate monuments down, they say you got to preserve history. Hey, history happened. You can't deny it. But when you talk about how blacks were mistreated in the South, like in To Kill a Mockingbird, as it shows, I don't know. Do we really have to show that side of history? I mean, aren't we?
Right.
You guys, you progressives like to talk about that too much.
I know, but like, here's the thing: that this story is not an isolated case, right? You have to put everything into context. And if you look at, this war against educating kids that's being pursued by conservatives, then you see why they're doing this and what their intentions are. So I'll give you other examples. The Texas Board of Education. The Texas Board of Education has been fighting aggressively to get rid of civil rights leaders from its history books and from its social studies classes. So they want to replace civil rights leaders with conservative individuals like Phyllis Schlafly. Okay, so instead of learning about, Cesar Chavez or other individuals who led very important movements in our nation's history, we would learn about, a religious zealot who would just preach hate and try to control people's bodies and lives with her particular religion. Which, by the way, I don't have a problem learning about Phyllis Schlafly either, but I think it's important to also learn about our civil rights leaders. So the Texas Board of Education doing that is disastrous because most of the textbooks that are printed in the country are printed in Texas. So it wouldn't just have this chilling effect on education in the state of Texas. It would have a chilling effect in the entire country, right? And then when you talk about those Confederate statues, I mean, think about it. There is a concerted effort to whitewash our Confederate history as well, the Civil War, and make it seem as though it had nothing to do with racism or slavery. It had everything to do with slavery. They'll use euphemisms like, no, it was all about property rights. Okay, but what was the property? Oh, yeah, black people, you're slaves. So...
I mean, Anna, was slavery really racist, though? And there's a story we'll do tomorrow, because it came out too late, right before the show, about a guy who says, thank God white people, took over this country instead of black people. He says, I'm not a racist. It's kind of like the definition of racism. They're amazing, man. They'll say anything and then add, but I'm not a racist. All right, which leads us to our Nazi story.
Yes. Kevin Wilshaw was a white nationalist leader. In fact, he was an organizer for the National Front since the 1980s. However, very recently, I'm talking about this year, he decided to denounce Nazis and come out as gay. Turns out that his mom was also Jewish.
Drops.
Okay, so let's take a look at this gentleman. There's Kevin Wilshaw right there. And as recently as January, he was preaching hate. But he has come to a different conclusion. He's had a change of heart. And here's what he has to say. By the way, this is an individual in the UK. So the UK is also grappling with similar themes that we have here in the United States. He said, on one or two occasions in the recent past, I've actually been the recipient of the very hatred of the people I want to belong to. If you're gay, it is acceptable in society, but with these groups of people, it's not acceptable. And I found on one or two occasions when I was suspected of being gay, I was subjected to abuse. Well, congratulations. I'm glad you came to that conclusion. He also says, and I'm glad he realizes this. It's a terribly selfish thing to say, but it's true. I saw people being abused, shouted at, spat out in the street. It's not until it's directed at you that you suddenly realize that what you're doing is wrong.
No, Kevin, for the rest of us, it doesn't take it happening to us for us to empathize with other human beings. If I see someone being spit on or attacked in the street, my instinct is to go help them. Your instinct was to take part in that. And how old are you? Jesus Christ. After being a neo-Nazi for decade after decade after decade, you finally realize, oh my God, what if it happens to me? That hurts my feelings. Really? Wow, thank you for figuring that out, Sherlock Holmes. And so, I have almost no sympathy for this guy at all. Why I love this story is because what I always tell you guys, these guys have deep-seated problems. So they're not neo-Nazis in this day and age because they're mentally healthy and they have a good self-identity. No, usually it is something that they loathe about themselves. And so, the fact that he was partly Jewish obviously was an issue for him for whatever insane reason. But probably the fact that he was gay wasn't a bigger issue. And he points out, it turns out at National Front, there's a lot of gay leaders. To which I say, of course! Of course, it's not. Look, part of me doesn't like talking about that because I feel like there's such a disgrace to other members of the LGBT community, but almost no one does more damage than closeted gays. Here, Roy Cohn in America, J. Edgar Hoover in America, and the list goes on, and they target other gays most of all. Because it's something they hate about themselves.
It's not only is it something that they hate about themselves, I think that they're so obsessed with hiding that secret about their identity that they lash out at other gays and in a way to kind of like cover for themselves, right? But in reality, like, the more I see people like this lashing out at specific communities, the more I question them. And that's not to say that, all people who are filled with this type of hatred are gay. That's crazy, right. And that's not what we're trying to say. But it is fascinating to hear this from him, and it is fascinating to get some insight into these groups by what he's saying, because he also talks about how, yes, there are other members of the National Front who are gay, and they're openly gay, but there's a hierarchy in that type of group, and the higher you are in that hierarchy, the more likely it is that people will make excuses for you if you do happen to be gay, or they'll say things like, oh, but he's not really gay, right?
Or they'll say he's gay, but he's okay. Like, because he hates other people so much that he's okay, even though he's gay and we're supposed to hate him. So, look, I just want to give you the last couple of quotes here that I thought were really instructive. From what Kevin Wilshaw said. He said, I didn't have many friends at school. I wanted to be a member of a group of people that had a name. And I thought getting involved in that kind of thing would be comradeship. And so this is exactly what I tell you about whether it's Islamic terrorists or mass shooters in America or people who join hate groups. They're just looking for some sort of purpose in life. And they're usually losers. And I'm not the one to pick on the guy who's lonely at school. Absolutely not. Or to help, etc. But they're filled with this rage inside, and they're like, oh, look, these other guys are full of rage too. But at least I fit in here, right?
It's a sense of community. It's the same type of gang mentality that we all learn about when we're younger, right? The reason why a lot of people join gangs is because they feel like, okay, this is a sense of family, this is a sense of community that their life might be lacking. And that's the sense that I got from him. And he wanted that sense of community so badly that he was willing to, really hide his identity and live the way that he lived for so long. I mean, he's an older guy, and he had to hide his sexual orientation because of all this. And look, I don't know whether or not I want to, shun him and criticize him, or if I want to be a little more open-minded, because at least he did have a change of heart. I know it was later in life, but it is maddening that it isn't until they experience hatred themselves that they wake up and realize, oh, maybe my behavior is unacceptable.
Maybe I'm a bad guy here, but I'm finding it really hard to empathize with.
I hear you.
He also, by the way, committed acts of violence, and he admits that. So when he was beating up on other people, well, that was hunky-dory, and it was so cool to be a neo-Nazi. Oh my God, you don't like me because of who I am? Oh, well then I'm going to leave the group after decades of this. Look, last two quotes. He said, even though you end up being a group of people that through their own extreme views are cut off from society, you do have a sense of comradeship in that you're a member of a group that's being attacked by other people. So I think that phenomenon can't be underestimated. There's so many people who feel like, even though, hey, I'm part of the alt-right, and, it seems like the rest of society doesn't think that racism is awesome and that women should have equal rights or whatever, right? But at least I'm part of this group, and everybody else is attacking us. That means we must be right. Rush Limbaugh says that all the time. So many people attack me, I must be right. Mm-hmm. It's like a weird, perverse thing, but they get at least unity out of that, and they feel like we're dirtbags together, okay?
Yeah.
And in fact, the last quote from him is fascinating. He said, I'm going to find it difficult, granted, to fill a void that has occupied my life since childhood. So even though he knows that the neo-Nazis hate him for being gay and for being Jewish,
He's gonna miss being
he's gonna
part of
miss
the community. Yeah.
He's gonna miss being a Nazi. It's amazing.
I don't know if he's going to miss being a Nazi, but he's going to miss that sense of community. And so that's the reason why I'm having a hard time, being 100% negative toward him, because at this stage in his life, after he's victimized people and he's probably hated by pretty much everyone, it is difficult to shun the one group that did accept you, right?
Until they decided to hate you as well.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
So
look, please be a better person than me and be accepting of people who see the right way. But man, I'm finding it hard. So reap what you sow. I mean, I'm not going to shed any tears for you because you miss your neo-Nazi buddies.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, if you're in a group that's attacking your identity, get out. Get out right now. Don't come crying 20 years later. All right. Look, guys, we're out of time for the radio show, but we are going to continue online because there's two stories that are phenomenal. One is what Jim Baker has said to his trolls. He's a televangelist, and it is freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second story is super important. It's the Me Too movement. Prominent women coming out talking about sexual harassment and abuse that they have faced. I think that it is a game changer culturally. Mm-hmm. So tytnetwork.com/live. We're going to continue in just a little bit. And then, of course, tonight at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, we're going to watch the movie Immigrant Prison together. So also watch that. And we got to go. So we'll see you after the break. Bart, is there a reason why we've been doing flamenco music the whole time? Is it in honor of Catalonia or something, and their separation?
No, the world's just heavy. I'm just lightening the load.
All right. All right. God bless. God bless. We just heard from Irina that Janine Moss had us in another story in the CNN. She is the best.
She is the best. And not because she uses us in her content, but because her reports are always awesome.
Yeah. I'm just going to read two quick tweets and then we got to go. We'll do the last couple stories for you guys. Nick says about To Kill a Mockingbird, sounds like a bunch of snowflakes got their feelings hurt by a great piece of literature. And Mixed Pancake says, I'm gay and I never once thought in the past before coming out, damn, I'm in the closet. I should terrorize people that are. Right?
Yeah.
I know. It's what people are imagining. Okay, by the way, one other thing, guys. Don't forget in Vegas, tomorrow, what happens in Vegas shouldn't stay in Vegas. Tomorrow we're covering the Unity Reform Commission for the DNC. So if you're in Vegas, go to tytnetwork.com/get updates, or just show up at Bally's at 12:30. And you can actually watch the whole thing. And if you're not in Vegas, you can watch it here, youtube.com/TYT, starting at 4 o'clock Eastern. Okay? And we'll do double streaming tomorrow. All right, what's next?
Let's start with Jim Baker, and then we'll do the Me Too campaign.
Yep.
Jim Baker is a disgraced televangelist. He's disgraced because he has spent time in prison for accounting fraud, and he also paid a woman $279,000 in hush money after he allegedly raped her. So, yeah, not a great guy. And he used to make a ton of money off of being a televangelist. But then he said that he hates prosperity gospel preachers and he thinks that they're frauds.
Ironic.
And now he somehow miraculously is a televangelist again after spending nearly 5 years in prison. And he says he's not scamming people. He's just selling them doomsday food for when the apocalypse happens.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he was running a legit business now, Anna. Okay, so he's a reformed, I see. Well, because when the doomsday comes, you're going to need the protein shakes.
You're going to need the protein shakes. You're going to need those underground bunkers. All right, so why is he in the news today? Well, apparently some people are ruffling his feathers, and he's tired of it. He's tired of people watching him. He's tired of people mocking him. And so he's got some strong words for you, okay? Let's take a look.
Even Satan and donkeys talk to God.
Right, that's right.
The only ones that probably aren't talking to God these days are some mean people in America. People who just are anti-Christ. And if you don't want to hear it, just shut me off. Especially you folks that monitor me every day to try to destroy me. Just go away. You don't have to be there. You don't have to hear it. But one day you're going to shake your fist in God's face. And you're going to say, God, why didn't you warn me? And he's going to say, you sat there and you made fun of Jim Baker all those years. I warned you. But you didn't listen.
I love the idea of, I'm visualizing it like, God, why didn't you warn me? And he's going to mention Jim Baker. That's what's going to happen, Jim Baker. Wow.
Well, you murdered 7 people and ate their body parts, plus you were mean to Jim Baker. Or you're a wonderful human being. You help the poor, the needy, just like Jesus told you. But you were mean to Jim Baker. Sorry, hell it is. God, why didn't you warn me?
Oh, gosh. The most amazing part about all of this is that even after everything that he's done in the past, people are still into him.
Yeah, I know. They still give him money. It's amazing. It's amazing. So, I mean, how do you listen to any of that? Oh, God. When he's
but even donkeys talk to God.
That's where I was going.
Donkeys talk to God.
No, but my favorite was the woman in the background going, yeah, that's true. Donkeys talk to God. That's true. I saw it on Shrek. They'll start the dragons, fall in love with them sometimes. I saw it. My own eyes. Donkeys talk to God. And notice, by the way, the people who monitor him, look at him, he's like...
I didn't even know he existed.
I know.
So it's kind of funny that, like, he feels like he's under attack.
Yeah,
right?
He's like, don't monitor me. Why? If you're not doing anything wrong, what difference does it make if they're monitoring you? So, just, you got another viewer. You can try to sell him a protein shake. Okay. Anyway, he's like, even Satan listens to God, but the people who are monitoring him are worse than Satan because they're mean to Jim Baker.
We're mean to Jim Baker.
There's only one thing worse than Satan. That's trolling Jim Baker.
You know, look,
they're not even trolling him. All they do is those right-wing watch and whoever else he's referring to, they just put up clips of him, and then we all laugh. But that's it.
But here's the thing. If laughing at Jim Baker, if there was truth behind what he said, and one day after the apocalypse, I will be face-to-face with God himself, and he tells me, you're going to go to hell and burn in eternal damnation because you were mean to Jim Baker, I feel like it's worth it.
And you know what? I love what you're saying. It's true. Like, I'm in the afterlife, and all of a sudden, I see donkeys talking to God, and we're like, fucking color me surprised. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
No, you were right. I was wrong. There's talking donkeys. They're talking to God, and God is really pissed about what I said about Jim Baker.
He's gonna play this audio
That's right.
on that day when we're confronted by him. He's gonna be like, "You remember when you said this? When you said it was worth it to criticize Jim Baker?"
And you know what? Look, last thing, religious folks, I love you guys, but really, how do you believe this stuff? Okay, so there's so many parts of the stories I can't understand. You're talking to God and you're shaking your fist at him. If I saw God, I'd be like, oh, my bad, dude. I didn't know. I wouldn't be like, God, let me tell you something about you and your talking donkey.
I don't think I've ever shaked my fist at anyone. And there have been situations where I've been very angry, and there's no fist shaking.
Okay, and so like Moses splits the Red Sea and the raining frogs and all that stuff. They wander in the desert for a while. To be fair, it was quite some time. And then they're like, oh no, Moses is full of shit. He split the Red Sea! Okay? He rained frogs on people. Yeah. He had God kill the firstborn sons. And they're like, yeah, not buying it. Right? I shake my fist at you, God. Okay, so, on this earth, go ahead and be mean to Jim Baker. You don't even have to be mean. Let's just have fun.
Let's just watch his clips.
That's it. Yeah. That's all. And if it turns out there is a God, whatever you do, don't shake your fist at him. Okay.
All right. Moving on. A new campaign has emerged on social media known as the Me Too campaign, where women of all stripes are sharing their experiences with sexual assault and sexual harassment. Now, a number of big-name A-list celebrities are also sharing their stories, which I think is incredibly powerful because, first of all, the volume, the number of women who are coming forward is incredibly shocking. But also, these are women who, have pretty successful careers, and hearing their story is important because it shows that it doesn't matter how successful you've been or how unsuccessful you've been in the industry. You could have been victimized by people like Harvey Weinstein. So Reese Witherspoon was a more recent example of an individual who shared her story. She was at the Elle Women in Hollywood event, and she said the following: I have my own experiences that have come back to me very vividly, and I have found it hard to sleep, hard to think, hard to communicate. A lot of the feelings I've been having about anxiety, about being honest, the guilt for not speaking up earlier or taking action. She also says, and I wish I could tell you that was an isolated incident in my career. She had been sexually assaulted by a director when she was 16, but sadly it wasn't. I've had multiple experiences of harassment and sexual assault, and I don't speak about them very often. But after hearing all the stories these past few days and hearing these brave women speak up tonight, the things that we're kind of told to sweep under the rug and not talk about, it's made me want to speak up and speak up loudly because I felt less alone this week than I've ever felt in my entire career.
I think that right there is a tipping point. Mm-hmm. And so I don't mean just her statement, but that feeling that now other women have that says, you know what, okay, they had the courage to speak up, I'm going to have the courage, and we're all going to talk about it because we need to end this. And I think this is a cultural shift that is enormous. It can't be overstated. So it started with Bill Cosby, then Roger Ailes, Donald Trump, Harvey Weinstein,
Bill
O'Reilly, all these stories of serial sexual harassers. 16 women came out against Donald Trump, over 50 women for Bill Cosby, Roger Ailes, dozens of women, so many different settlements, tens of millions of dollars in settlements, and it goes on and on. And so now Reese Witherspoon is not talking about Harvey Weinstein, but she's saying, look, it's not just Harvey Weinstein, it's not just these prominent figures. It was a lot of people who did it to a lot of women. And so they don't feel alone anymore. And I think that is the most important part. So my sense from having talked to many women and obviously seeing all of this unfold is that it is a way larger problem than men realize. And there's good reason for that, so let me explain.
Not just men, that people in general realize. Because even I didn't realize how rampant this was, right? I didn't realize that pretty much every big name celebrity that we know has some, pretty devastating experience with sexual assault within the industry.
Yeah, but it's not just the industry, and it's not just celebrities.
Yeah.
Because if some percentage of men, I would like to think and hope that it is a smaller percentage of men. I don't know what the number is. I don't know if it's 10 or 20%. I don't know what the number is. But do it so often that it does not affect 10 or 20% of women. It affects a much larger percentage, 60% of women. Again, the numbers are not, look, we've done previous studies. I don't have them at my fingertips here. And I think those studies are undercounting because so many people were afraid to come out. So I'm just stating it as a general concept, that it affects more women. So most men think, I don't know anyone that was affected because they didn't speak out.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. So they assume that it doesn't happen that often. But a lot of women who have experienced it know that it happens way more often than they realize. And if you haven't been personally affected by it, you might also underestimate it.
Right. And another thing that, educated me more on this issue was the fact that the vast majority of women who have shared their stories keep talking about the guilt that they felt, right? And I always, whenever we talk about people who don't report sexual assault, it's always because society will usually attack them or bash them, and they'll meet them with, insane skepticism. However, I realize that while that is part of the reason why people don't come forward, it also has to do with the fact that they feel responsible for being victimized. Like, they think, oh my God, I must have done something to deserve this. And imagine living with that for years. I mean, Reese Witherspoon, is an older woman now. I mean, I don't mean that to you know what I'm saying? This happened when she was 16, so she's been living with this since she was 16.
Now.
Exactly, she's 41 now, so she's been living with this for decades. That's what I'm trying to say. And imagine struggling with that internally for such a long period of time and feeling guilt over something that you shouldn't feel guilty about.
And so, which leads us to the America Ferrera story.
Right. So America Ferrera also shared her story on social media, Instagram to be specific. And she said, first time I can remember being sexually assaulted was when I was 9 years old. I told no one and lived with the shame and guilt, thinking all along that I, a 9-year-old child, was somehow responsible for the actions of a grown man. He would smile at me and wave, and I would hurry past him, my blood running cold, my guts carrying the burden of what only he and I knew. That he expected me to shut my mouth and smile back. Ladies, let's break the silence so the next generation of girls won't have to live with this bullshit.
It's powerful, man, and I think that this is now unstoppable, and it's a great thing that we've hit this tipping point, because the more of a spotlight that you put on it, the better we are at addressing it and hopefully beginning to fix it. So, look, there was terrible things going on in the 1970s when I had a great childhood, and we would just bike around the neighborhood, and then we didn't have much adult supervision. We thought everything was hunky-dory. In reality, there was way more crime back then, and there was a lot more child molestation back then. But what wound up happening is we put a spotlight on it, and many other factors led to the reduction of crime, but certainly to the things we didn't know was happening behind the scenes.
Right.
And now this is the next giant thing. Just the fact that we covered it up and didn't talk about it didn't mean it didn't exist. It existed at a mass scale. And so now that we're these wonderful, courageous, brave women are putting a spotlight on it, I think that we might be on the road to fixing it. I hope.
Yes, and I also want to add one other thing. So we know that, based on the number of people who have come forward, this appears to disproportionately, affect women. But there have been men in Hollywood coming forward, too, about their stories in regard to sexual assault. And so, wow.
I think that number is going to get way, way higher. Because it's when you have men in positions of power, and in Hollywood, a lot of times absolute power, not that many movies made, there's not that many starting roles, there's not that many music bands, etc. So those gatekeepers had enormous power, and no matter what their orientation is, unfortunately, they often abused it. So I think that the next shoe that is going to drop is a lot more guys coming out about what happened in Hollywood too. But remember, this isn't just about Hollywood. Unfortunately, it affects all of society. So let's all speak out together, and so that we can get on the road to recovery. All right, we're out of time here. We do have a post-game show for you guys. Catch that and all the network shows ad-free. If you're a member, tytnetwork.com/join. Bye-bye.